Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on the USBN Sports Podcast. And as always, I'm joined with my co-host, Steve Ellis. And Steve, been trying to get a hold of this guy for a while to try to work something out. And a guy that we know very well.
Yes.
Played at Anderson, coached all these years, but we've also seen him a lot of these late nights that we've had with the Varner Revival. So excited to have Ben come join us here.
Many talents this guy has. I can't wait to get into this. But I tell you what, this guy is one of the guys that we've been hoping at some day that this would happen, and we're welcoming him back to Redskinville.
Absolutely, gotta love it. But you know what's even cooler about this thing is you always want to be associated with a guy that just that's got a name Oz. Guys have shortened things, and he's Oz, and so it's cool that we've got Oz here. So Ben, thanks for joining us here.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me.
So let's get this started. We always kind of talk about where you grew up in Anderson. Talk a little bit about growing up and what it was like growing up in your neighborhood.
So actually, I was born on the west side of town.
Wow.
I grew up in Price Hill until I was 12.
Okay.
And then we moved and we lived on Tonopah and Summit. So we moved there between 6th and 7th grade year. Came in, new kid, didn't know anybody. Trying to find your way in a middle school and a new school. It was interesting.
Well, what made you? What was there a reason for moving from the west side to the east side?
So my feeder school from my elementary was Woodward.
Oh, wow.
And my parents are like, that's probably not a good idea. Let's look elsewhere. We considered going to St. William's and then going to Elder because I lived right down the street from Elder. Living out by my grandma, she lives in Delhi. My dad's an Oak Hills grad, so we considered moving to Harrison. And my mom was originally from Deer Park, and she told my dad, she's like, "Nah, we need to go back east. We need to go over there." And Dad had a good friend of his from high school that lived on the other side of Summit, and we'd spent some time over here, and we really liked it, and this is where we landed.
That's all. Hey, Steve.
Oh, Tonopah. Another Summit
on my side.
Summit Estates guy.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Steve. Let's plan this on purpose so we can keep our side higher.
All right, well, let's talk about Summit a little bit. So what neighbors did you have? What buddies did you have grow up by you, and how did you get in touch with some guys once you moved?
So I lived next door to Chris and Adam Milton. Adam was my age, lived down the street from, they ended up moving in a bit later, but we were talking earlier about Stephen Peening, lived down the street from me, played football with me, he was a year older than me.
Okay.
Pretty good offensive lineman to come through. One of my really good friends lived a couple of doors down. His name's Travis Schwab. He was a couple years younger, football player as well. And then there were just some other random people in the neighborhood that you kind of latched onto when you moved in because you were the new kid and it was summer and you're out running around and trying to meet people, trying to find your way, I guess.
Sure. So when you moved here, were you able to latch on at some teams? What sports did you play? So
prior to moving, I played baseball.
Okay.
I was a baseball kid growing up. I was always too big to play youth football. Oh. And then we moved in. That transition of moving from Price Hill to Anderson, I had no idea on the signups for football, no idea for any of that stuff. So I didn't play football until I was an 8th grader.
Wow.
So I started wrestling as a 7th grader. Mr. Ellis was the wrestling coach at the time. And
is that Pat Ellis?
Pat, yeah.
No kidding.
Pat
wow.
Ellis.
I didn't know that he did that.
I didn't either.
He did it for a long time. He was a great coach. I really respect and love that guy. So I came home. My dad had wrestled for a little bit in high school, and I said, "Dad, I think I want to wrestle." And he put me down in a referee's position and proceeded to beat the crap out of me for about 5 minutes and drug my face across the carpet. He was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that sounds like fun. So, so I did that, and then as an 8th grader, I figured it out, and Coach Dale was my football coach as an 8th grader, and which is funny because his wife's my big time boss in West Claremont as the superintendent. Coach Adams.
Oh.
Yeah, come on, man,
Coach Dale.
Coach Dale.
It's Coach Dale.
Coach Dale. So I did football, I wrestled, and then I also did track. I threw shot and discus, and that's when I really kind of got into.
I totally forgot about the track part. I didn't even think. I knew that you wrestled. I knew the football. I did not know about the track.
Yeah,
totally.
I remember the track for you. Now the question I had was the middle school part. What year were you?
I graduated high school in 98, so that middle school would have been 92 through 94, I guess.
So was that
So were you at Fort Shores Junior High, or where were you?
I was at Anderson.
So you were Anderson 7 through?
Yes.
How long did that go? Because we've
It's
had
like almost the whole 90s, it seemed like.
Because all those guys like Druso and all those guys, they were all there.
I think
too.
like 98 was like the first year it opened, somewhere around there.
It had to be before then.
Well, my nephew who graduated 2005, I think.
Are you talking about Nagel?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nagel opened in 99.
Okay. Yeah, 99.
Okay. Yeah, my brother was a 8th grader. It was 99, 2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan was an 8th grader.
I thought you meant like at the high school. It was in 99. No, it was way before that. That started through that. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, man, so you're bringing up some names there. So,
no kidding.
So Dale Adams was your coach.
Yeah.
How about that?
That is crazy.
I love Coach Dale.
Coach Dale.
Awesome.
Who doesn't?
Well, I'll tell you what. What's great for me is not only being around Dale, but now Dale helps out with our broadcast on Friday night. Yeah. So Dale does the camera.
Great guy.
And it is just so much fun because you know how Dale is. He loves to joke and laugh and have a good time, and he just fits in perfect with Greg and I and Steve Martin, all those guys. So it's a lot of fun to have Dale around for those games. And he already texted me earlier and said, "Hey, that first game, South Oldham." He goes, that's?" I said, "I think it's in Louisville or close to Louisville." He goes, "All right." He said he already looked at it. He goes, "We're staying on Friday. We're gonna stay Saturday." He's already got a hotel lined up. He's ready to go.
Yeah, that's the Pee Wee Valley exit on the
Is it
on the
really?
way down. It's right before you get to the turn.
Really?
Making that trip to Nashville, like that's one of the places
wow.
I stop.
Oh my gosh.
On the way back.
Wow,
There's
really?
like a little 5-star gas station, and
we'll
use
be
the bathroom,
making it.
grab a water and a
That's
candy bar,
hilarious.
and got an hour and 40 minutes on the way home.
We're gonna hit that place.
That's
probably.
awesome.
All right. So as you got into high school, so you were still playing those 3 sports.
So I did my freshman and sophomore year. I just did football and wrestling.
Okay.
And then I had Andy Wolf and Mrs. Gross for English. So English first bell.
Yeah.
And then I went next door to Andy, Mr. Wolf's second bell. And they just sandwiched me and got me to come back out. And so I did that my last 2 years.
So what did you do with track?
Shot and discus.
Okay.
I was a thrower.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. How'd that work out for you?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. I had good experience with it. It was cool because a lot of the guys that you played football against, especially a lot of guys that I wrestled against, also threw.
Yeah.
So I got to kind of continue those friendships that were started as young guys, and because it's heavyweights, like you start wrestling, if you're a freshman and you're wrestling heavyweight, like you're going to wrestle that guy all the way through.
Sure.
Like, there's not a whole lot of changing of the guard.
Right.
Because it's a tough sport, and you get those guys to come out and do it.
I'm sitting here thinking about throwing the disc because I'd be throwing it like because you spit. I'd be throwing
Throw backwards.
I'd be too dizzy.
There's a reason why you didn't do it.
That's right. Exactly right.
So who was the varsity wrestling coach?
When I wrestled with Scott Peters.
Oh,
Coach
really?
Peters.
And he participated in practice, right?
Yeah, he'd get out there and roll around. All of the guys would get out there. So my drill partner was a guy named Brad Hensley, who was
state champ,
Anderson's only wrestling state champ. So our pit, our 3 or 4 guys, it got to the point where it might be Brad, myself, one other guy, and like Coach Peters or Coach Bianco or Coach Winder would jump in, or Coach Adams would jump in and try to go with it.
That's pretty incredible.
You might have a 8-10 pound practice coming out of there because you're getting after it for
really
2 solid hours. And it was
I forgot.
Fun.
Yeah, I remember Scott.
I bet you Pete. Yeah, I bet
he was awesome.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
He wrestled obviously at Elder, right?
Yeah, Elder, and then I think he wrestled at Wittenberg.
Wittenberg.
I didn't know he wrestled.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, he played football, right? He played football at Wittenberg.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's pretty incredible. So let's get into the football part of it. Okay. You ended up playing probably at a time at Anderson, not only on the east side on the side with Anderson, but probably one of the better teams in the city and known throughout the city. And you played for Coach Soriano. Yeah. Talk a little bit about playing during that time, and then also playing for Coach Soriano.
It was awesome. It was the crowds on Friday nights were big. Like regardless of where we were, we traveled really, really well. Huge parent support, huge.
Yeah.
Support from within the building.
Right.
So that was fun, like, and then you had like some natural rivalries that kind of developed and happened during that time. Like Amelia was pretty solid then.
Yeah.
And we had some battles with them, and Glen Estee would kind of go back and forth. But like, we played Harrison.
Yeah, Harrison was always a big one.
Coach Knox, who I had the pleasure of coaching with for a year at Anderson, and then 2 years when I coached at Mount St. Joe. One of my really good buddies, like his dudes were tough, and they got after it. They ran the 50 slant angle, and they were good. But playing for Coach Siriano was special. Like he did a really, really good job of not only developing us as football players, but just developing us as hardworking individuals, and kind of giving us those little things as we were, going through practice or going through meetings or whatever it was. And, I really latched onto that. And, I was fortunate to, go play college football. But then when I came back and started coaching, I had the ability to go and work under him for a while and really try to absorb. Like, that guy's forgotten more football than I'll ever know.
It's sickening.
Crazy
how much he knows.
He just eats and sleeps it.
And he still does.
Yeah, absolutely.
He just can't. You have to, I don't know if you've seen some of the shows that we have with him that we did at the lounge, and he just, he gets everybody's attention. He still gets fired up, and he'll talk to the boys, and he's like, you've got to do this, and and the boys just respect the heck out of him. Even they've never really know who the guy is, but they just see he's around. So
we've said this, Ben, and you got to go through it firsthand. Through different high schools and different sports, you're going to have your legends that are around, and I mean, you're around Vince, who's just a legend and a Hall of Famer, and just I mean, what Anderson football is, and then the track thing with Andy Wolf. I mean, it's just incredible time that you went through with some of the coaches that are that were there at the same time, that were just legendary.
I mean, there's not a lot of people around in the area, state, country, potentially, that can say they were coached by two Hall of Fame, state Hall of Fame coaches.
No question about it.
And it was special. It was special times.
Yeah, I'm gonna be completely honest, man. I'm so jealous, that you guys got to have that experience of how grateful, because back when I played, it was brutal. I mean, it was brutal, and to be a part of it now, to watch it has always been cool. But I mean, to live it and at least broadcast for it, it's been pretty awesome to be around that. So you are fortunate to have two Hall of Fame coaches.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, like working for Coach Siriano, and one of the things, and I think we talked about this the last time, obviously, like, your whole system's upgraded from talking into a little tape recorder on the pool deck. Birds chirping in the background. But like, he was one of those coaches that if you wanted to learn how to watch football, he's going to teach you. If you wanted to truly learn how to be a student of the game, he was that guy that was going to do it. And that's a lot of my coaching and a lot of my coaching philosophy as an offensive line coach, as a coordinator, and things like that. Like it stems from him, and how to develop plays and how to get it across and have a reason for it, and not just call plays to call plays or run plays to run plays. Like, there has to be a reason. Like, is it part of your system? If it's not, why are you wasting your time?
Well, and I had something like that happen where when I was coaching freshmen, and I called a play that wasn't part of he didn't like that. And it's because he's running a system that he wants, and so.
Well, I mean, playing for Vince, I mean, it's one thing knowing what you're doing and the time and effort you put into it, but for me, being the outsider, not playing football and just admiring, I mean, just the motivational factor that he had. I mean, just from watching the stuff that he did, like when he was first introduced to Anderson High School. I mean, I can remember that like it was yesterday, let alone the pep rallies. And I can imagine the locker rooms. I was able to go a couple times in the locker rooms at halftimes, like at St. X, and a couple more times. I mean, it's just incredible that you would think guys would just run through a wall.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm 43 years old, and I would still put my head through a wall for the man. Like, I owe a lot of my success as a a man to him. Obviously my dad and was number one, but like a lot of my coaches were, they're secondary fathers to us, and it's, that's
says a lot.
Absolutely.
So one of the guys that you did play with that was a running back, and he'll probably be on our list that we bring out here coming up here in a couple weeks, is Joe Sherrill. Very good running back, phenomenal. I think he ended up going to OU and playing at Ute. So talk a little bit about playing with Joe and what kind of running back he was.
Joe was awesome. Like he was a big kid. For a back, I think he was like 6'2", 210, something like that. Strong as an ox. Had great vision, great downhill runner. I remember a lot of times where I would feel a hand on my back, and then I would feel cleats running up the back of my legs, and he would just kind of use me as a battering ram or whoever, and then the next thing I know, I'm being shoved off as he bolts to me.
Right.
He was good. He better be on the list.
Do you still keep in contact with him at all?
I see some of those guys every once in a while, or Facebook message them or things like that. So
we'd love to we need to get a hold of him somehow.
Yeah.
We gotta, because he obviously is going to be on our, he's definitely on our list. I know that.
There's no question of that.
So.
Yeah. He was, for his size, because, there's been a lot of running backs that go through that are 5'7", 5'8", and, this guy was different.
He's built like a tight end almost.
Yeah.
He running around back
which
there.
is one of the reasons why he went to play Division I.
Right.
All right. So you had a good career, both I'm sure in wrestling and in football. Then you went on. How did the recruiting process work for you? And how did you end up where you ended up playing football?
So I was an average offensive lineman. I think I was average. Size wise, I was, okay. So it was a lot of Division III schools, so Wilmington, Marietta, Mount St. Joe, places like that. And I went and watched the Mount was hosting a game against Wilmington, and the Mount came back and won in overtime. And I was like, this is kind of cool. This is a cool place, a cool system. They didn't have a home stadium at the time like they do now.
I forgot about that.
So we played at Elder or LaSalle. Where were we?
Okay, I forgot about that.
Yeah, which was weird, but is what it is. And it was close to my grandma. My grandma still lived over in Delhi,
Perfect.
so it was 5 minutes from her house.
Yep.
And that part paid off when I got hurt really, really bad as a freshman and dislocated. I was a starter. And between week 4 and 5, got rolled up on and dislocated my ankle. And so lived with grandma, who was right around the corner, and got me to school. Or one of my good buddies, a guy named Ryan Kramer, who had played running back at Elder, would pick me up, and then grandma would pick me up, and so I just lived with her. It was so close.
That worked out.
Which was nice.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wasn't driving from Anderson to Delhi every day.
So was there any other looks around that you had?
No, that was about it.
What about with wrestling or track?
Nothing.
Yeah, because in terms of the Mount, I was going to wrestle at the Mount too. That was part of it.
Okay.
So I went over there to play football. I was going to wrestle. Got hurt, and then the guy that had been the assistant wrestling coach at Anderson, a guy named Tony Bianco, took over when Scott left, and he said, "Hey man, I heard you're not wrestling. Do you want to come coach?"
Oh.
So that's how I started coaching. So I was an 18-year-old varsity assistant wrestling coach.
No kidding.
And walking around with
all the guys
cast
he knew.
and clutches and crutches, and hanging out with all the kids that I had either coached or coached against. And
But when you played at Mount St. Joe, you played for Huber, right? Coach Huber?
No, actually I played for Coach Cordini.
That's right.
Yeah. So
for some reason I was thinking it was Huber. I don't know why.
Well, Hubie was the defensive coordinator and recruiting coordinator at the time. Okay. So Hubie was the one that recruited me.
Oh, okay.
To go.
Okay.
But it was old man Cordini, who was awesome. I loved Ron. He's still around. I saw him at the That's My Boy Award. His son, Ron Jr., is an assistant principal at King's and coached up there. So the one year that I coached at King's, Deanie Jr. and I coached the D-line together. And it was
really?
Absolute blast.
Wow. That's cool.
Absolute blast.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you got into coaching right away at the early age.
Yeah.
So then as you go through college, and what made you decide to go into teaching?
So, like I said before, some of the coaches and teachers that I had, and I liked working with kids. Like I was helping out with, like my brother wrestled youth through Emmy Lions way back when. Okay. So I'd go up there and help out with that. My junior year, they had like art day at Air, and I was volunteered to go over and do it and watching the kids work on little projects and do things. I'm like, maybe this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I went in as an elementary ed cert, and they changed the program that spring going into my freshman year of college. So I ended up focusing on middle school, and so I'm 4-9 social studies and language arts are my areas. But yeah, I really liked working with kids, and I had no idea that I would get into coaching like I have.
Yeah.
But it's been awesome. It's been really cool. I'm definitely
you should
passion
be. You should be in it. You're great at it.
Well, thank you.
So what was your first teaching position?
So I was a long-term sub at Nagel. My student taught at Nagel, long-term subbed at Nagel, and then my first official teaching job was 8th grade social studies at Amelia Middle before West Claremont merged. So I've been in West Claremont for 20 years now. So my whole career's been in West Claremont. Okay. So I was at Amelia Middle to start, Glen Estee Middle for 12 years, I think.
Yeah.
And then now, since we've merged, 6 years.
That's crazy. Yeah. It's funny, the avenues, or however you say it, like if you had the long-term sub job at Nagel, and if you were able to get caught on at Nagel, you probably would have never left.
Probably.
And who knows, but then we're going to talk about in a second here all the, some of the coaching positions you've had, that have taken you, which is, good news, bad news, however you want to look at it, but you just never know how all that works out.
Yep.
It's so let's get into that about your coaching. You've had, you've been a lot of places coaching, predominantly mainly on the east side, but talk a little bit about the first coaching job. Was that at Anderson, or talk a little bit about your path and where you go? I know you were at New Richmond for a little bit, so talk a little bit about all that.
So my first official football coaching position, I did 2 years at Nagel. I was a 7th grade coach and an 8th grade coach, and then Coach Siriano hired me to be an assistant freshman coach. I did that for a year, and then he moved me up, and I was the head freshman coach for 2.
Oh, wow.
And then I was a varsity assistant JV coach for 2 years at Anderson.
Okay.
And then when Coach Siriano retired and went over to Mount St. Joe as the OC, I went with him and was one of his offensive line coaches. It was myself and Coach Knox, who had been at Harrison. And then he actually coached running backs for us Vince's last year. So he was driving from Harrison every day to come over and coach, which was crazy.
Yes.
So he and I coached the O-line together for 2 years over at the Mount. My ex-wife was pregnant with my daughter, and full-time student and working on my master's, teaching full-time, baby two on the way, traveling, it was a lot. So I got back in high school, and I coached with Zach Taylor at Glen Estee for 3 years. I was his D-line coach. They were kind of thin years. Like that's when we were failing levies and but the kids battled. That was my first true I'm a varsity football coach position, other than coaching at the Mount. But that was, I had a group, and it was my responsibility to take care of my group. And then went to Kings for a year, coached the D-line.
I don't remember that one. I don't remember that at all.
2012.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. And then one of my really good buddies got hired as the head coach at New Richmond, and sent me a text, hey, I'm probably going to get this job. Will you come coach the O-line for me? And I was like, dude, I'm going to coach the O-line at Kings. I got to get switched over from D-line to O-line. And he's like, well, what if I make you my OC? I'm like, well, we can talk.
We can talk.
So I went down, and the guy's name was Josh Stratton. And, so Stratton and I talked, and so he's the one that kind of gave me my first opportunity as a coordinator.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And forever thankful and indebted of it.
You were there for how many years?
I was in New Richmond for 7.
Yeah, because I thought you were there for a while.
7 years.
Had some great success there too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we got it rolling there. We were
Playoffs?
It was playoffs, yeah. We had some opportunities to, like, we made it to the second round of the playoffs 2 years in a row. And that second year, it came down to, like, a play. And, we were right there and just couldn't get past it.
What I forget. What division are they again? Three. Okay.
Three. So we had, like, Trotwood and CJ and some other teams like that. So, but it was good. Stratton was there for 4 years and then moved back to Columbus, where he's originally from, and was a head coach up there for a couple years. A guy named Pat Burke, who's the head coach at Dixie Heights now, took over, and he and I were really, really tight because he was a D-line coach, I O-line, and we kind of meshed back and forth on a bunch of stuff. So I stayed with him. And then Coach McCullough, who was at Turpin, Rob Page, who was his OC, left to go be the head coach up at Big Walnut up in Columbus.
Oh, wow.
And he texted me, he goes, "Dude, I'm leaving. You need to go take this job." And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. But met with Kent and jumped on it. It was a great opportunity. Right. It brought me back into Forest Hills, which is what I wanted. Yeah. Brought me back close to my kids. Right. Just the familiarity of the area. Right. Not that I didn't like my time at New Richmond. I absolutely loved it down there. Great town, great vibe. Kind of reminded me kind of like a small Anderson with the travel and the support and things like that. Great facilities. Mm-hmm. So I got the opportunity to go be an OC at Turpin, and I mean, the ECC's tough.
Oh, you're not kidding.
It's a bear, and I that was good for me. It pushed me.
You did very well. Yeah. You had some great. I remember calling some of those games, and you did an excellent job. Yeah. I mean, you really did. But now you're back. You're back at Anderson, and so I'll get to see you every Friday night now, because we're there at every home and away game. So you and I will give our ceremonial hug like we always do when we see each other. So it'll be good to see you a part of the program again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on Friday nights and doing these games. So it's got to be exciting to come back.
Yeah, I'm excited. When Coach McCullough told me he was leaving, there was a couple of opportunities that naturally presented themselves, and I just kept coming back to, like, I don't want to be away from my kids again, because some of the opportunities would have taken me to other random parts around the city, and my daughter just kept like, hey, so because she's gonna be a freshman, my son's a sophomore right now, and my daughter's an 8th grader, so she's like, I'm going to be there next year. Like, you might as well just do it, Dad. Like, give me some Raptor gear, Dad.
That's great. That's awesome.
All right, Taryn, I'll see what I can do.
That's awesome.
So Evan gave me a pretty cool opportunity, and I jumped on it, and it's been a cool experience so far. He's a smart dude, and it's totally different than anything I've ever done. Right.
I was going to ask you how do you compare it? At least that's so far.
It's totally different. Like he likes to sling it. He'll throw it. I'm more of a let's run
the ball.
Yeah. But
well, good. Maybe you can convince me every once in a while to run the ball.
Stop it.
Or punt.
Or stop.
Hey, so, man, it's a funny, and he knows this because we joke around a lot about it. We'll joke around about the golf outing. Yeah. He makes a comment. He goes, his brother will be, he goes, hey, he said, you were ripping me again this year. It was about punting. And so that's our big running joke about the whole time. So it's just,
that was the thing. Like when we were prepping for them last year, over at Turpin, we're in there watching film, and Kent's like, I don't have a punt formation for them, so I don't know what they're gonna do. So we played them week 9. Hadn't been in a traditional punt formation.
Right.
So he's like, I'm gonna assume they're gonna do this, but I'm like, good luck with that. But it's cool. But back to your question, it's different. It's night and day. Like I was pretty balanced, I think, over my career. Like I tried to be 50-50. There was times where we just didn't have a good quarterback, so we had to run the ball more. But he slings it around. I think he's got a really good thing going. It's really been good for me to kind of look at some things from a different perspective. And kind of learn what he's doing and try to figure out what makes him tick, and it's only going to make me better. So when I took the job, like,
I agree.
People are like, well, you're not going to be a coordinator. I was like, I don't care. I don't have to be a coordinator.
Right,
I'll be a position coach, and I just want to learn
different perspective.
I think it's awesome that you're doing it, and I mean it's only you're adding more to that room. I think because Cookie's there too, right? Yeah. So you got Cookie, you got yourself.
Who was one of my coaches?
Right. So that's what I'm saying. You're just adding more to that room to help out, and I think I just love it. I love when you guys are back in the mix, and it just makes it nice. So
it's fun.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the fact that you have your kids, and you're back at Anderson, which is awesome. Not that you're busy, but let's talk about your weekends. Because for whatever reason you don't like to be home. You love your kids, but you do this great thing, and probably the most popular singer band over the last 20 plus years around the township that everybody flocks to, that just has major following, and I'm one of them. And you're involved with Dan Varner, and we were fortunate to interview him. Tell us about being involved with Dan Varner and what your roles are with him, and how cool it is to just be around that atmosphere.
It's almost like stepping out on stage. It's almost like stepping out onto the field or out onto the mat. Like, it's that same rush. And the camaraderie amongst the band guys. It's like being part of a team, and it's the dudes that he has they're good guys. And they're fun. They're truly like brothers. They're family. I kind of fell into the situation, I guess. Campbell, his youngest, and Peyton, my oldest, are in kindergarten together, and we struck up a conversation in the library at Air, and we were like, I knew who he was. I'd seen his name. I probably watched him a couple of times before that, but he's a big dude. He's like 6'4", 6'5". He's a monster. And I was like, dude, you had to play something. And we sat in the library and talked sports for 45 minutes. And that's kind of how we hit it off, and that was 10, 11 years ago. So I've been a part of his band, the band family, whatever you want to call it, for 10 years now. I stage manage for him, so I help set up, tear down, make sure stuff works, busted guitar strings, snare heads breaking, whatever it is, just trying to help out. I'm like the offensive line coach of the band. And then, I get an opportunity to get up and play some, and
it's awesome.
Get up and jam.
I love
it. Depends on the night and kind of where we're at and what's going on. It might be 2 songs, it might be a whole set. It just it varies.
I've used that a couple times though, and it's like, hey, I know that guy.
I know that guy.
That's awesome.
All right, so I want you to tell us about some of the venues you've been to with Dan. But I mean, one of the ones that I thought that was the coolest was Toby Keith's.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
That was awesome. So cool. And it was packed every single time you guys were there.
It was like I'll get the time hop things on Facebook pop up, and you look back and you're like, good night. That's a lot of people. Especially if there was like Reds games or Bengals games going on like that next day. I remember there was a time where I think Green Bay was in town, and it was just packed with people on a Saturday night, and it was a blast. It was a nightmare getting in and out of there. Especially as they were putting the streetcar stuff in. But that was a cool one. Had the opportunity to play in some different places in Nashville, a couple bars, on Broadway or off Broadway, and
that's cool.
That's been a cool experience. And like my first trip to Nashville was with them during CMAs, so there's 100,000 people running around down there, and I was like, what is happening?
That is
I'm in heaven, but I'm also not sure what's going on.
Right.
So like that's a cool place. Like we really like playing at the casinos, because you get a lot of people down there, and you're right. Like he's got a really solid following of people.
He's just so fun. He's a great guy, and he'd do anything for you. I mean, just
all those Christmas things that he does all the time.
He does benefits.
Jimmy B's and all those places.
O'Neill's back in the day.
O'Neill's,
those have been some nice ones. That one's always fun. More so the knowing what what's coming out of it. Like I know that he's going to write a check to the foundation, or he's going to write a check to interparish ministries or things like that, and help a whole lot of people out that need it, especially during the holiday season. That's cool. That's really cool.
Besides Nashville, how far have you guys gone? I mean, have you gone up to Columbus? Have you?
Yep. We've played up there. I've gone up a couple of times. I think there was a couple of times I had my kids or I was coaching or something was going on. But we would play up at a place called Bristol Republic, just south of campus.
Okay.
And kind of a young crowd, but packed. And it was fun. Nice little overnight for us. And
has he opened for anybody?
Oh, he's open for a ton of people.
That's what I wanted to know. Yeah. So it's name some of the ones that he's open for.
Real quick, didn't he play at Riverbend one time for somebody when somebody canceled last minute? I thought he did for some reason. I could be wrong on it. Totally wrong.
Yeah, I don't know on that. That might have been before my time, but I think he's open for Blake. Blake Shelton.
Yes, I did know that. Yes.
I think Taylor Swift, when she was young.
Wow.
More recently, we opened up for Rodney Atkins at the Claremont County Fair.
Okay. Yep.
Sarah Evans.
Oh, wow.
I'm drawing a blank on some of the other ones, but some big names.
Some big names.
Big name people.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool in itself that. I get the opportunity to kind of rub elbows with some of those people, and that's pretty cool. And
the county fairs ones, are those more fun than like
the bar scene?
Like the Taste of Cincinnati, or what's the other ones?
Taste of Cincinnati's fun.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's another nightmare load-in one. But that's,
I bet.
But it's it's fun, and we learned a lesson. A few years back where you got like a 3-hour set, and if you want people to stay, you don't take a break. So they would just kind of rotate guys off the stage, just play for the three hours, so that people would hang around. Otherwise, they're going to go and they're not going to come back.
I kind of get it. Yeah.
So yeah, that taste is fun.
Wow.
And that's coming up here in a couple weeks.
Yes.
Well, hold on. Speaking of that, aren't you guys playing this weekend, right? At Belterra Saturday?
No, at Turfway.
Turfway.
Yeah, they revamped it down there.
Which it's such a cool venue there.
Yeah, the bar area is awesome. The stage is massive.
Have you been there, Danny?
I was there for the opening. And it was a nightmare for the opening because they weren't prepared. Because they had their first rate. It was awful. You waited in line for beers forever, and it was a big band that plays all the time. God, I can't think of their name right now.
Big Karate Girls.
I think it was, and they were there, so that was double. It was packed opening weekend, and they just were not prepared. But it's a neat place.
Well, it's got to be cool for you because it's so much open. More space, and it's not as chopped up as Belterra, and I love Belterra, but
that one's hard on me. Because to get to the stage, I got to go out into the main floor around the back, and then come back through. And I'm not a small guy, trying to get over to the sound guy and as politely as I can.
Oh, I see. So as politely, and everybody, so
everyone wants to talk to you.
I'm like, guys, I'm really trying to work. Give me 10 minutes. Dan needs more monitor. Weird.
So give me a couple of things real quick. Has there been any weird thing that you've seen when you're playing out in the audience? Like you seen somebody do something, puke and throw. Anything. I'm sure you probably see that, but is there any strange, weird story that you might have? Or?
So we were playing Rocking the Roebling down at Schmale Park, down by the Roebling Bridge.
Sure.
And no cops anywhere. And there were all these people that were passed out.
Really?
Just drunk, high, whatever.
Yep.
And we're trying to play, and Dan's holding the mic. He goes, "Hey, come up here and sing with me," or it's like, "Come sing with me," or whatever. And this homeless guy took him literally. So then all of a sudden there's this dude that's looking Varner eye to eye on the stage, and I get the look from the side, and I'm like, "Oh crap!" And I had to go nicely escort this gentleman off the stage. I was like, "Dude, you can't do that." He's like, "He said come sing."
He said
he didn't literally mean it, buddy. And then 10 minutes later, the guy was back up on the stage, and this time I wasn't as
nice.
I had him
escorted,
one arm off, like had him off the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Yeah, I had some nice words for me. Don't come on my stage again.
Yeah.
Buddy. Like, you're
what about the outside venue at Belterra? Are they bringing that back?
Yeah, they did that for a while.
Well, I know, but
pre-COVID, right?
Yeah, I think, I don't know.
Was that pretty cool for you?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it was where because they would come in and throw a stage up real quick.
Yeah.
And do all the stuff, and then we'd clean up and go. Like, it was, that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because everybody could kind of sit up in the grandstand.
You do whatever.
Do whatever.
Yeah. Actually, it was more the older people were up in the stands. And all the younger people.
You were up front part of it. Around.
That was
I saw you guys.
He had his shirt off.
People.
Yeah. Hell yeah, he did. Now it's a party. Now it's a party.
You know when that happens, it's going on, right? You know,
it's been a good night.
So one other thing, just give me something that we don't know about Dan Varner. Give me something like just something either odd or just anything that you can know of. And if you don't know anything, that's fine too. I just thought maybe he's got something weird. Like I don't know. You know how some guys have to put their shoes on the same way every time. Does he do anything before he goes on stage? Does he have a tradition or anything like that?
Wow.
That's a tough one.
I feel like you're trying to get me to wrap my buddy here.
You don't have to, man.
Well, he always wears black.
He wears a lot of black.
Yeah.
We always do the yeehaw. Always do the yeehaw.
Yeah, that's his tradition.
There's usually shots of Crown before we play.
Yep.
Like that's definitely a tradition thing. But like in terms of like a weird thing that I can think of.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spent tons of time with him.
Yeah,
and
sure.
We all have our little quirks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, nothing jumps
crazy.
out. Yeah, nothing crazy that I can think of right now. So,
well, dang, I thought we were gonna get him.
I'll come up with something on my own.
Yeah.
I was gonna go.
It's all good.
Go to Turfway and start yelling something at him. We know we go on this weekend. As he's there.
Furry nipples.
Yeah. So we're gonna get ready to wrap this up, but we always wrap it up by trying to do some your favorite memories. So we're gonna start off with your favorite memory from We're gonna go high school, college, and then maybe a coaching memory. So let's start off with your first favorite high school memory.
Playing against Turpin, Cheryl busting a 80-yard touchdown run, I think it was.
Yeah.
We ran a 18 counter. I pulled.
That's awesome. You remember the name of the play?
Rolled up. He cut it and was gone.
Yes.
The other one was on a kickoff return where he stiff-armed Stump and put him right on his back.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun for a touchdown.
Yeah. That's awesome.
College, probably my first start.
Yeah.
As a freshman, it was fun. Or. I didn't cut as an offensive lineman. I just didn't cut very often, and I decided against Wabash, who was really good, to try to cut their 23-year-old All-American linebacker, and I cut him, and he proceeded to punch the crap out of me for a little bit, which was fun. And then coaching, probably at New Richmond, outright winning the league.
Nice.
And then the following week being down by almost 30 points and coming back in about a quarter and a half and winning the game.
Wow.
In the playoffs.
Holy
That's pretty
cow.
in the playoffs?
That was first round playoff against Mount Healthy. We were down, it might have been like 27-7 or something like that.
Wow. How about that?
We scored a whole bunch of points in a quarter and a half.
That's
pretty awesome.
Yeah, great. It was awesome. That was awesome. That was a good group of kids. They were fun. I still keep in touch with a lot of those guys.
Well,
that's awesome too.
Yeah.
So, but it's been great catching up with you, man. We really appreciate it. I mean, we could obviously go on for hours. We could probably sit down here for another hour and go on, and might have to break some other things out.
Get a little thirsty.
Yeah, might have to do a couple other things, and we should do one where we just totally drink the whole time, maybe, just see what happens.
Yeah,
that could be pretty bad though.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be a good
Just
idea.
interview Varner in a band. That'd be
a good one. Get him here, play some.
Yes.
Yeah, get in here, play some. Yeah, I'm not very good on the sound, so I'd probably screw something up here. So we don't want to do that.
That's why you got Ben.
That's why I got the stage manager. So we really appreciate you joining us. So
thank you guys.
We're gonna go ahead and wrap this up for Steve Ellis, Dan Albers, and Ben Osborne. You've been listening to This Week in Anderson. We'll catch you guys next week.